All right, so get this. We've got all this research, and it suggests that the world might be less about, these brilliant minds calling the shots and more about evolution.
Evolution.
Yeah, and not just like the biological kind, but evolution of, well, everything.
Interesting. So it's like the world is building itself, but like from the bottom up.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. I mean, it almost feels like an insult to our intelligence,
Right.
right? We see something complex, and we're so quick to just assume, oh, well, someone smart must design this.
Right. Like we just assume there must be some grand plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Matt Ridley, he kind of throws a wrench in that whole line of thinking.
Yeah, he really challenges that assumption that everything is designed.
He does. He uses this pretty vivid analogy to illustrate his point.
Oh, what's that?
He compares it to blaming a sailboat for the wind. We see a boat moving, and we automatically assume it's the captain steering calling the shots. But what about the wind, the currents, the tides? Those are the real forces at play.
Yeah, that makes sense. We do that all the time, don't we?
All the time. It's like we're focused on the most visible actor and completely missing the bigger picture.
Right. And I think Ridley's point is that those underlying forces, the countless small decisions and interactions, those are what really shape things.
It's like we're looking at a puzzle, but we're only focused on the finished picture and not the individual pieces.
Yeah, great analogy.
Think about it. Wars, inventions, even how species survive. We jump to credit these big personalities, these great men.
But what about all those factors that we don't see, the ones that are shaping things behind the scenes?
Exactly. And this even applies to something as, well, basic as learning.
Learning.
Now, think about a student and a teacher. We instinctively praise the teacher's knowledge, their expertise. But what about the student's role in all this?
Their innate curiosity, their ability to grasp new concepts.
Right, or even those, conversations they have with peers, the books they choose to read on their own, all these seemingly small things, they actually play a huge role.
They do, but they're often overlooked.
And it's not just about learning. This tendency to, oversimplify cause and effect, it's everywhere, especially with the amount of information we're bombarded with every single day.
You're talking about information overload.
Yeah. Nassim Taleb, he talks about this. He's skeptical of cause and effect, especially in these, complex systems.
Well, with so much data swirling around, it becomes almost impossible to really pinpoint the true cause of anything.
It's like trying to find, I don't know, a specific grain of sand on the beach. It's overwhelming.
So you're saying we're battling this illusion of control.
In a way, yeah. We're blind to all these forces that are shaping the world around us.
Right, blind to those underlying processes,
Right.
the ones that are really driving things.
But get this, Ridley doesn't stop there. He takes this whole concept and applies it to something, well, something that feels almost sacred.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What's that?
Morality.
Morality, really?
He suggests that even our sense of right and wrong might not be, some divine code, but rather an emergent property of human interaction.
Wow, so you're saying that instead of morality being imposed from above, it's more like...
It's more like a dance, a constant back and forth
between
our individual instincts and the social feedback we get.
That's fascinating. And to illustrate this point, I think Ridley brings up a really interesting story, something about an ancient Roman philosopher.
Yes, Lucretius. He was considered too radical for his time.
Oh, Lucretius. His work was practically buried for centuries.
It was. His major work, De Rerum Natura, it wasn't rediscovered until, 1417.
I think it was found in a monastery, right? A single surviving manuscript.
One single manuscript. And that rediscovery sparked a chain of events that changed how people thought. It's amazing.
It really shows how ideas spread and evolve and how unpredictable that process can be.
Right. Imagine how many other great ideas are out there just waiting to be rediscovered.
That's a tantalizing thought.
But here's where things get even more interesting. This concept of emergent morality. It connects to someone we usually think of in the context of economics.
Really? Who's that?
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith, the father of economics.
The one and only. And you might be surprised to hear that he didn't see morality as a top-down thing either.
He didn't. So what did he think?
He believed it arose organically from human nature, from how we interact with each other.
So it's less about external forces dictating what's right and wrong, and more about
this ongoing dance between our nature and the social feedback we receive.
And over time, this dance shapes our collective sense of morality.
Precisely. It's like this constant evolution of what we consider right and wrong.
And if you think about it, we see this play out in history, too. Think about the decline in violence.
Yeah, Steven Pinker's work on that is fascinating.
He argues that it wasn't some planned effort. It was a complex interplay of factors: economic development, literacy, evolving forms of governance.
So these gradual shifts changed our behavior patterns.
Exactly. And it wasn't intentional, just emerged. Like those private mints in 18th century Britain that we've talked about before.
Right? They emerged to solve a currency shortage. The system adapted, but not from some grand plan. It was through the actions of people, individuals responding to a problem.
It's like evolution, but it's happening everywhere, all the time, and not just in biology.
Okay, you officially blew my mind.
Glad I could help.
So morality, it's less like a rule book and more like a constantly evolving dance.
Right, a dance between our individual instincts and the social forces around us.
But here's the kicker. This whole evolutionary thing, it isn't just about morality, it's about everything.
Everything. How so?
This principle of gradual change, driven by a kind of selection pressure, it's not limited to the natural world. We see it in how legal systems develop, how technology advances, even how economies evolve.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Can you give me an example?
I'd love to. How about we dive into that right after this break?
Sounds good to me. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off, talking about evolution and emergence.
You know, this idea that the world is evolving, not just in a biological sense, but in every aspect, it's really making me rethink a lot of things.
It's definitely a paradigm shift. And, one of the most intriguing areas where this concept challenges traditional thinking is in the idea of intelligent design.
Oh yeah, the whole was it designed or did it just evolve
Yeah.
debate. That always gets people fired up.
It does. And for centuries, people have looked at the complexity and order of the universe and just assumed there had to be some kind of grand designer behind it all. Even brilliant minds like Isaac Newton, who revolutionized physics, saw purpose and design in the universe as proof of a divine creator.
I mean, you can't really argue with Newton, right?
He was a giant. And this idea that there must be some intelligent force behind everything, it's been a recurring theme throughout history.
One of the most famous examples, of course, is William Paley's watchmaker analogy.
Ah, yes, the watchmaker. A classic argument for intelligent design.
You're walking along, you find a watch. With all its intricate gears and springs, you'd naturally assume it was designed, right?
Of course. It seems obvious. Paley argued that the same logic applies to the natural world. The complexity of living organisms, the way everything seems to fit together so perfectly, it just screams designer, right?
It's a compelling argument, I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But then along comes Darwin, and boom, everything changes.
Right. Darwin throws a major wrench into the works with his theory of natural selection.
Instead of a divine watchmaker, we have this blind, iterative process that can somehow create incredible complexity without a conscious plan.
It's revolutionary. Darwin showed how organisms with traits that make them better suited to their environment are more likely to survive, to reproduce, and to pass those traits on to their offspring.
Over vast stretches of time, this process, this natural selection, can lead to the mind-boggling diversity and complexity that we see all around us.
And all without a guiding hand.
It's a pretty elegant theory, and it explains so much about the natural world. But what about the intelligent design folks? How do they reconcile their beliefs with Darwin's discoveries?
Well, that's where things get a bit tricky for them. One of the biggest challenges came with the discovery of so-called junk DNA. These are sections of our genetic code that don't seem to have any specific function.
Junk DNA, huh?
Yeah.
It's like finding a bunch of gibberish in the middle of an instruction manual.
Right.
From a design perspective, it just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And the challenges to intelligent design go beyond junk DNA. Even something as devastating as cancer can be understood through an evolutionary lens.
Cancer, really?
Yes. Cancer cells, in a sense, are evolving right inside our bodies. They mutate, they compete with each other for resources, they even develop resistance to the treatments we use against them.
So it's like this horrifying microscopic example of evolution in action.
It is. It's a grim reminder that this process, this constant adaptation and selection, is happening all around us, all the time.
Wow. That's both disturbing and fascinating. It really highlights the power of Darwinian principles to explain even the most challenging biological phenomena. But okay, let's shift gears for a second. What about the things that we humans create? Surely those are examples of intelligent design, right?
Not necessarily. Remember Leonard Read's essay, I, Pencil?
Oh yeah, I, Pencil, what a great read.
In it, he breaks down the process of making something as simple as a pencil. From mining the graphite, to harvesting the wood, to assembling all the pieces.
It's incredible when you think about how many people are involved in making a single pencil. And nobody really thinks about all of that.
That's his point. No one person in that entire chain, from the lumberjack to the store clerk, has all the knowledge necessary to make a pencil from scratch. The knowledge is distributed.
It's like this invisible web of knowledge and skills that goes into making even the most mundane objects.
Exactly. So even human-made things emerge from this bottom-up process of distributed knowledge, of collective effort. It's not always about a single mind conceiving of and creating something.
Okay, so now I'm really starting to see how this whole concept of emergence applies to, well, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But how does it play into the age-old nature versus nurture debate?
That's a great question. It gets at the heart of who we are, right? Are we just products of our genes, or are we shaped by our environment, our experiences?
It's the ultimate question, right?
Mm.
Are we slaves to our DNA, or are we the masters of our own destiny? What's the answer?
Well, if we look at the evidence, it seems like the truth lies somewhere in between. On the one hand, we have this undeniable biological inheritance that shapes our physical and psychological traits.
Right, our genes definitely play a role.
They do. But on the other hand, we see clear evidence of how social and environmental factors can influence who we are, how we behave.
Like that decline in violence that Steven Pinker talks about.
Exactly. That suggests that social and environmental changes can have a huge impact on our behavior patterns.
So it's this complex interplay, this ongoing dance between nature and nurture. It's not an either-or situation.
It's both, and it's constantly interacting and influencing each other. And it gets even more complicated when you consider things like sexual attraction.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. Why do we find certain features attractive? Is it societal conditioning, or is it something more primal?
Well, it's a controversial topic, but there's evidence to suggest that at least some of our preferences might be rooted in our evolutionary history.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's a little scary to think that some of our most basic instincts might be driven by forces we don't even understand.
I know what you mean. It's both humbling and a little unsettling.
So we've got this interplay of genes and environment shaping who we are. But what about something like education? Isn't that a purely top-down system? You know, governments deciding what kids need to learn, teachers delivering the information.
It seems that way, right? But even education, as deliberate and controlled as it might appear, shows signs of emergence. Take the rise of widespread schooling in the 19th century.
Okay, I'm listening.
Was it purely a top-down initiative driven by governments? Or was it at least partially a response to a growing demand from parents and communities who recognize the increasing importance of education in a rapidly changing world?
You're saying that maybe those in power were just catching up to a trend that was already happening organically?
It's a possibility, right? And it points to this idea that even systems that appear to be meticulously planned and controlled might actually be influenced by bottom-up processes that we don't always see.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. Emergence is popping up everywhere.
It is, and it often leads to surprisingly successful outcomes, which brings us to this really crucial point, the unexpected success of bottom-up systems.
Unexpected success. Tell me more. I love a good underdog story.
Well, think about those privately minted coins we discussed earlier, the Druids circulating in 18th century Britain. They emerged not because the government planned it, but because the royal mint was failing to meet the needs of the people.
So it was like a market-driven solution to a problem that the government couldn't solve.
Precisely. Entrepreneurs saw an opportunity, they provided a better alternative, and people embraced it.
It's like the system self-corrected, finding a way to adapt and thrive without any top-down intervention.
It's a perfect example of emergence in action, and we see similar patterns throughout history. Take the Scottish free banking era. For a period of time, banks in Scotland operated without a central bank, without any central control.
No central bank. That sounds chaotic.
You'd think so, right? But what's fascinating is that despite the lack of central control, the Scottish banking system experienced fewer failures than the English system during the same period.
Fewer failures with less regulation. That's really counterintuitive. It challenges the idea that we need these big, centralized institutions to maintain stability.
It does. It suggests that sometimes a more decentralized bottom-up approach can be surprisingly resilient and effective.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal of emergence. But if we're talking about bottom-up systems in the modern world, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the internet.
Ah, yes, the internet. The ultimate example of a decentralized emergent system, a global network that connects billions of people and seems to constantly outsmart attempts at centralized control.
It's incredible. Nobody could have predicted the internet, and nobody can really control it. It just keeps growing and evolving.
And that's the beauty of it. It's a testament to the power of emergence. A sprawling ecosystem of information, ideas, and innovations that no single entity could have possibly designed or controlled.
It really makes you wonder, maybe we've been looking at the world the wrong way for centuries.
Maybe we have. Maybe it's less about imposing order from the top down and more about understanding and harnessing the power of emergence.
I think we need to explore that idea further, but I think that's a great place to leave it for now. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think we need a moment to let it all sink in. All right, so where were we? Oh yeah, emergence. It's like this hidden force shaping everything around us.
It really makes you rethink how the world works, doesn't it?
It does. If so much of what we see, like morality and technology, are a result of these bottom-up processes, does that mean our actions don't really matter?
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's not like we're just passive observers in all of this. Remember, evolution, even in this broader sense, it works through this combination of variation and selection.
Okay, so how does that apply to us, to humans?
Well, we as individuals, with our unique traits and choices and actions, we contribute to that variation. And the environment, including things like the social systems we create, that acts as the selective force.
So it's like we're still players in the game, even if we're not the ones controlling everything.
Exactly. Our choices, our innovations, they all feed into this pool of possibilities, and emergence takes from there. We might not be the architects, but we're definitely part of the construction crew.
I like that analogy. So if we can't control emergence, can we at least influence it?
I think so. By understanding the forces at play, we can become more conscious participants in the process. We can design systems that encourage certain outcomes, nudge things in a positive direction.
So instead of trying to force our vision of the future onto the world, it's more about creating the right conditions for good things to happen.
It's a more humble approach, but it might be more effective in the long run. It requires trust, though.
Trust in one.
Trust in the process itself, trust in the collective intelligence of individuals interacting within a well-designed system.
That's a big ask.
It is, but it also means letting go of this need to control everything, accepting that we can't predict every outcome.
It's like acknowledging that the world is this complex, ever-changing system, and we just have to roll with it.
And maybe that's a good thing. It frees us up to be more experimental, more adaptable.
Yeah, instead of clinging to rigid plans that might not work, we can embrace the unknown and just see where things go.
That's the spirit. And it applies to so many areas of life, education, economics, even our personal relationships.
It's like a whole new way of being in the world, more humble, more adaptive, more experimental.
And ultimately, I think it's more in tune with how the world actually works.
Wow. This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has. It really makes you think.
To our listeners, we hope this has sparked some new ideas, maybe even challenged some old assumptions. As you go about your day, look around and see if you can spot emergence in action.
And one last thought to leave you with. If emergence is this powerful force shaping the world, what does it mean for leadership? What does it mean to be a leader in a world where control is an illusion?
That's a question worth pondering. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and remember, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the unexpected. Until next time.